was. It looked like it was mud. I don't know what it was. It was a flying saucer or what it was. It wasn't an airplane. It was not an airplane. It was down off the low.
You're listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast with your hosts, Ash Ellis and Greg Tomlinson.
How's it going, Ash?
Very well, very well. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. So we are recording tonight, the week after our visit to Priest Cottage.
Yes.
How did you find it?
Amazing. That was a really cool little place.
Super cool.
The basement area where they used to store the bodies and stuff to keep them cold in the basement.
Yeah.
That's just mad thinking. Like, this is a body pit. This is where they used to keep everything. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was mad. I mean, some of the things that we got on the devices and the noises we heard, particularly that thudding noise from above us in the bedroom, in the kids' bedroom, that was pretty mad. And it's a shame we didn't figure out the Wi-Fi hotspot thing for the basement a bit sooner, because we were a bit late in the night doing that. But yeah. Is a super cool venue. So anybody who's not checked out, it's the Priest Cottage in Leeds, and you can book it through Facebook.
Paranormal FX on Facebook.
FX Paranormal.
FX Paranormal on Facebook.
And the good thing about that was, for anybody who hasn't been, it's only been open a couple of weeks, is they just leave you to it. There's no CCTV. They can't see what you're doing. They just leave you to... No staff, no. But loads of tea, coffee, milk, all that kind of stuff was much appreciated. And we live streamed everything. So the good thing was that because we live streamed it for 5 hours, FX Paranormal were in the chat as well. So we were able to ask questions at the location at the same time as they were able to answer them and keep us up to date. And we had a load of weird stuff come through on the Boo-Core device, the word generator device.
Yes.
The word apple kept coming through.
a lot.
And weirdly, as you know, you were on my phone live streaming, and Sarah was doing some investigative work on what apples mean. And we couldn't say it online because we get banned by TikTok, but apples are to do or representation of children and such like, and is a term used for children. And we know that the Priest Cottage, there was a nursery area there, so it's weird that words like that kept coming up.
And when you did the Estes method, you got apples going through on there as well. It's just so strange. It kept coming up.
Yeah, very weird. Very weird. And I could feel a presence right next to me as well. It was so weird. I can't even explain it. So, yeah. How I managed to drive back afterwards, I have no idea. I'm sure at some points I woke up and I was in the fast lane. So I don't know, as I was driving back to Crewe. So that was a bit of a challenge. But yeah, it was a great night.
And it was all part of, we're halfway through our charity month.
Yep.
On the podcast, on our TikTok. So everything we raise in July from the TikToks, from our Patreons, from our subscribers, 100% of that is going to two charities this month. So that's Mind Charity, Mental Health Charity, and Orchid, a male cancer awareness charity. Yep. So just check out our TikToks. We've got some lives coming up in the next couple of weeks. And again, all the gifts and subscribers, all of that is going to charity this month. So if you can, please dig deep.
We will do video. We need to do videos about why we chose those. I'll do mine tonight. Yeah, I'll do mine tonight, and we'll put those up. So, yeah, so awesome. So thank you everybody who supported us so far. We raised quite a bit last weekend.
Just in that one stream,
Just in the one stream. So, yeah, we'll update as we get towards the end of the month, because we're planning to go live at Cannock Chase over the next week or so. Just confirming the day exactly. But we've been to Cannock Chase before, and very weird experiences there as well. I can see our guest who's coming on to talk to us tonight was nodding her head when we said "Can it chase?" So maybe we'll get into that as well. Maybe we'll get into that. So yeah. So keep an eye out on social media and on our TikTok, etc. And thank you all for the support. It's been amazing. It really has.
Yeah.
So tonight we are going slightly different to what we've done before. Over our last guest was an exorcist from Florida, which is a subject that we haven't really covered before. And as everybody knows who's listened, that we cover all ranges of the paranormal, UFOs, cryptids, everything, past life, reincarnation, everything anything under the spectrum of paranormal. But one thing we haven't really done is got a more scientific side of that, and haven't really talked to somebody who's in it from a more of a scientific background. So tonight we're joined by Dr. Urszula Wolski, who is an independent researcher, data analyst, trainer in research methods and software, and an associate lecturer in psychology, and has been at Bucks New University in High Wycombe, just down the road from me, not far. It's about 25 minutes away from me, so quite close. So welcome along. Do we call you Dr. Wolski or do we call you Ursula? That is the question. Over to you.
It's fine. You can call me Ursula. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
Thank you.
no worries.
Thank you for joining
I
us.
don't often use the doctor bit unless it's for important stuff like bank applications or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
quite informal.
absolutely.
Yeah, Ursula is fine.
So what is the doctorate in?
It's sociology is my background. So I looked at what was it again? The computer software for analysing qualitative data. So the history and development of that. So I talked to developers back in the day. This software didn't exist. It was mostly, I don't want to bore you with this because we want to talk about paranormal, right?
No, certainly.
I'm a data analyst, so I'm
I see. Okay. So, back in the day, it was mostly quant stuff and SPSS and what have you. And then a group of developers independently of each other just decided that they were going to try and develop software to analyze qualitative data, so like interview data. And so I looked at the history and development of that. So that was my PhD in sociology.
Nice.
A lot of that just went over my head.
I know. Sorry. If you're not data minded, then yeah.
Oh, absolutely not. I've just about got my GCSEs in 1995, so I'm 1993 actually.
Well, congratulations. There's still qualifications. So.
Well, yeah. I think my teachers are more surprised than I was.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true.
So we have we sort of connected, and I dropped you a message based on some research that you are doing, which we'll cover that off first, then we'll talk about all the paranormal stuff alongside it. But you are researching the researchers of the paranormal. So can you tell us a little bit more about this survey? We put the survey up as a link on our Facebook page.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
And I don't know how we can get it on TikTok and stuff. I don't know how we do that, but we'll try.
We'll do it.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
But so why this particular type of research? So researching the researchers of the paranormal, so paranormal investigators.
I know. I thought the title's a bit cheesy at first, but it kind of stuck, and then people said it's great, so it stuck. That's cool. Researching the researchers. Well, I've had an interest in paranormal all my life. I think that's from my research that showed that actually a lot of people have had either an interest since childhood or experiences since childhood, whether they're one-off or occasional experiences or almost day-to-day experiences. I've always had an interest, had a few kind of unexplained things happen, but nothing major, nothing really wow or whatever compared to some of the stuff that I've heard. So I've always had that interest, and I grew up liking things like Ghostbusters. X-Files was one of my favourite. well, going back before then, Scooby-Doo. Without Scrappy, sorry. So stuff like that. So I always had that interest was always there. And then back in, I think about 2008, I can't remember how I heard about it, but I went to a conference called Exploring the Extraordinary. And I thought to myself, wow, I didn't know academics researched this kind of stuff. And they did. So it was an academic conference. So there I got to know people in the field who told me about other people doing the research. There I learned about the Society for Psychical Research and the Ghost Club, which I joined years later and currently a member. But I thought, okay, so, and then I started to read up about things, and okay, so there's a lot of research, particularly within psychology and parapsychology. And I thought, not much in sociology, there is a little bit, but there has been no research that is done on the investigators themselves and what actually their beliefs are, their experiences are, why they do what they do. And as I've discovered, devote so much time, like you guys, devote so much time to doing what you do. It's such a passion. So I thought, well, okay, if no one's done it, I'll do it.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about, so we've both completed it, but could you talk to us a little bit about the types of questions that you ask in the survey?
Yeah, well, thank you first of all for completing it and also sharing it.
No
yeah, I generally ask people about what types of experiences they've had. I know it's so difficult to put things into a questionnaire, and you can only limit the responses. So I have also done interviews as part of my research. I'm currently analysing all of that. That's a lot of data. But yeah, so asking people, do they do group investigations or is it solo investigations? I guess I'm trying to find out what people do. Is it always a group or is it individual? And I know from my interviews that some people have actually said they prefer doing something on an individual basis because it blocks out all the noise that you might get from another group. You know, you're in your group and you hear something and they'll go, oh, what was that? But of course it could just be someone making a noise, even though it could be at a distance away. Sound can still travel. So yeah, I mean, I should also add that I've also gone on investigations myself as well. Firstly, as part of my research, and then I ended up staying in the group. So now I am also an investigator. So what else? I can't really remember my own questions now. You filled it out. Can you remind me?
I'm just going through the survey now as we speak. The next, so you ask, do they consider being a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere in between?
Yeah. Well, that's right, because I want I want people to define themselves. Although I've given categories, I think people can say whether they are actually a believer or not. Depends on the phenomena. So I've given them some categories, and also in the interviews I've asked people how to define themselves. And I think by far people have come out with terms like paranormal investigator or paranormal historian. A few people have said ghost hunter. Other people have been, have said, I don't like that word ghost hunter because we're not hunting ghosts. But some people are just happy to use that.
Yeah.
So lots of definitions. And I think what the interesting thing is when I was looking for participants and searching through LinkedIn, so I put in the term, I use different terms. So I put in ghost hunter, spiritualist, or you name it. I've went through different types of words and didn't get many returns. But as soon as I put paranormal investigator in, over 2,000.
I bet.
Wow.
So that's saying that therefore then most people are defining themselves as a paranormal investigator. I mean, is that what you would both call yourselves? Or
I don't even know what I'd call myself.
Sorry, I'm going back into research mode.
No, that's cool.
Interviewing you now.
No, that's all right. I don't know. I suppose so. Paranormal investigator. What do we class ourselves as, Ash?
I guess. I mean, my history is in UFO, and that is UFO research investigator. Like we are investigating places. We go to these places. We try to investigate what's happening. So I guess, yeah, I think that's a fair.
Yeah, I would probably say that I'm I think I've put down paranormal investigator on my bio and stuff. So yeah, I'd probably go. I think it kind of says ghost hunter in a more professional term, if that's. But I mean, ghost hunter is a bit. You don't really hunt them, do you?
Yeah, that's what other people have said. Yeah,
Because what would you do if you found one? Do you
shoot it.
shoot it with lasers? Yeah, proton beam.
Zap it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think paranormal investigator is probably where I don't know, because we do the podcast as well.
Hundreds of people like we've interviewed and stuff, and witnesses that we interview. I've interviewed for UFO work.
And certainly by far, most people have talked about, because I've used the term paranormal, so that again, like yourselves, you said earlier at the start of your podcast, covers other things, not just ghosts or hauntings or, but cryptids and UFOs as well, or UAPs now, aren't they? That's what they call them now.
Yeah.
But by far, it's ghosts.
Yeah.
Or,
It's definitely when we first started the podcast that I was the ghost person. I was into ghosts and the paranormal. Ash was the UFO guy. It was UFOs back then. And then over the years, we've spoken to people who have had a blurring of all experiences across paranormal, cryptids, UAP, anything supernatural, whatever you want to call it. And it all comes under this sort of paranormal banner. So it's been interesting, the fact that we both started out sort of separate sort of views on it, and over the time we've kind of there's this blur. So it's definitely something that I've got more questions about now that I think than I ever have. So it's a very peculiar situation. Definitely me and Ash are in, because like Ash said, we've interviewed like 300 odd people about their experiences from being abducted by UFOs, abducted by aliens on a nightly basis, one particular guy, to people who claim to have been essentially the gatekeeper to heaven, and if you weren't ready to ascend or go to that place, you would live your life again until such time that you to move on. We've spoken to somebody who said there's different planes of the paranormal and spiritual planes, and depending where you are, you move up and down, and it completely blows my mind each time that we speak to a lot of these people and their interpretation of their experiences of the paranormal. We've spoken to people his wife was being abducted by grey aliens, and he chained her to the bed. He killed 19 of them with a samurai sword, with DNA proof of all of this. And me and Ash are just like, but then as we had said, we don't make any kind of assertions or opinions on the podcast. But obviously, we talk off the podcast about the stuff that we've heard. And for that particular gentleman, John Edmonds, we were saying that even if you didn't believe any of it, but if 1% of what he's told us was true, that in itself was insane. And he had a lot of stuff he talked about, all this weird stuff. So, it's the paranormal. Certainly, for me, you say paranormal researcher, that for me now covers a lot more than just ghost hunting. When I first started, I would go on ghost hunts. that was it. I never called it a paranormal investigation. And when we started talking to people, it was like, actually, it's not really ghost hunting. I've never caught a ghost, or I've seen stuff, but never managed to capture one. So yeah, I think paranormal investigator is definitely the term now. You also ask about Do you believe there's some kind of rational explanation?
Yeah.
You actually experience paranormal phenomena ourselves? How do people react when when you say what you do? So it's a lot of questions about us and our perception of what's happening, and also the perception of others on what we're doing. So yeah, no, it was cool to be able to answer the questions without actually having to ask loads of questions, because that's all we do a
Yeah.
lot, like
Yeah.
yourself. So what are you doing with the responses? What kind of stuff is that going to feed into research?
Well, I'm going to analyse the questionnaire data separately to the interview data, although, well, initially, because it's kind of like a mixed methods approach that I'm doing. Sorry, academic terms again.
That's all right.
So I will analyse, so particularly the qualitative responses, so the open-ended responses, I will analyse together and identify themes from that.
Cool.
So if I take an example, I think a lot of people were talking about, training. So one of the questions I ask about training, because I don't know if you're aware, I'm sure you do, the organisations like ASAP, the associates, help me out here. I always forget the associates.
I'm doing a presentation for them next month.
Oh, you are? Okay, brilliant.
And Ash has done one.
Oh, ASAP, whatever. You can.
Yeah.
You'll have to edit
Yeah,
this.
I don't.
They do training. There's also in America, you've got the Ryan Research Centre. So there are places, SPR study days, etc. So some people have said that they've done training. Other people, so questionnaire results where people sometimes felt that they didn't need training. If you've got the experience, particularly if you've had lifetime experiences of it, etc. But on the whole, I think the view was taken that without training, there was a risk that people could go into somebody's home, particularly if you're doing private investigations, and there are ethical issues associated with that. If for example, turning up and telling somebody that they've got a demon, which they may not necessarily have, they might have, but they might not, and then you're just scaring literally the hell out of them. So that has ethical issues. So for some people, they thought that training was important to go through, not also so the ethical process, but also learning how to use the equipment and using it properly. So yes, there was a lot of talk about that both across. So that would be an example of where that came out in the questionnaires, as well as the interviews that I've done. And also I've seen that from, well, not people going in and telling people they've got demons, but equipment use. And I've walked, going into an investigation, and I've had to learn how to use things and what they do and what they're called and etc. and what they measure. Even at the conference last week, when I was talking about the different equipment, I had my notes with me. So because to get it right about what's what, EMF reader and etc. and what it does and so on. So that would be an example that would cut across all the data that I've collected, and so I would analyze that together. So I think does that make sense?
Definitely. Have you found any, I guess, in the initial data, kind of skewed towards gender? Because I kind of found personally in the UFO field seems to be a lot more male dominated, whereas the paranormal, more ghosts, is a lot more female dominated.
Yeah.
So that's something that's kind of come across in your initial.
I haven't got that far in my analysis yet because I'm still collecting data. And somebody else actually asked me that the other day, and I'm like, yeah, I must do that, and I do intend to do that. So with my questionnaire data, I can do some sort of pivot tables or cross tabulation. So you look at data across. So I could do a breakdown of by gender, and also I've gathered data from different countries. So I want to look at that as well. I'd say, well, I know majority of my responses have been from the UK and from the USA. And I think that's, it's, two of the world's countries where everything is people bit more accepted, a bit more open about it. You go to every city, town or whatever, there'll be a ghost group, a ghost investigation going on or something.
And every town's got the most haunted.
Yeah, every town's got one. Yeah. I was trying to think of that Little England village. Yeah, but I was trying to be witty then, but it's not working. I was trying. So you two obviously doing podcasts a lot better than I would. So, yeah. So I do. I will be doing that kind of a comparison with the data when I finally finished collecting my data, and I've done really well. I mean, I did start this research actually in lockdown as well. And as you'll know, doing things in your own time, it takes time. So I was going to draw it to a close, and then I started to analyze my data. I thought, do you know what? There's gaps here. I want to find out more. There's very skewed towards UK, USA. I want to increase some responses from other countries, and I have done that. So I reopened my questionnaire again earlier this year. And as a result of that, increased my responses, increased my interviews, got to talk to some wonderful people, got to meet you guys, doing this right now. So
That's the
I
highlight.
think it was worth, extending my research. And I do have just over 400 responses.
Wow.
Which is brilliant.
That's really cool.
But if I've got the opportunity to get more, then that's brilliant, because I want to hear from the community. I want to be able to, whoever's listening to hear their voices. Because, and I don't know if this is something that you've experienced, but a lot of the participants that I've spoken to, this has come out both from the questionnaires, both from the interviews, both from people that I've generally spoken to, whether it's at the Ghost Club or SPR or other groups that I belong to, that acceptance of what you do. There'll be somebody somewhere or several people who will laugh at what you say. When I say I'm going on a ghost investigation, they'll go, "Oh, woo," and basically take the right. Am I allowed to swear on podcasts? I don't know. So
Absolutely.
take the piss, right? Out of what you're doing, but don't take it seriously. And I want to make the point that actually there is serious research that goes on. Okay, so even if in some people, and this is where the skeptics, because I have spoken to a few skeptics as well, and they might come across and say, well, going on a group investigation isn't entirely scientific. There's lots of things in the environment, there's lots of disturbances. Are people picking up things off other people? Which I think that can be true to some extent. Mm-hmm. But you can't deny that sometimes weird stuff happens and it's captured. And the flip side of the argument against the skeptic is saying, well, actually, a lot of this is anomalous data. So how can you make it scientific in collecting it? And, there's a debate. Yeah. So that's the point that I want to get across. And these are healthy debates. If you go to any particular science, whether it's physics or biology, chemistry, there's always, even within sociology and psychology, there's disagreements about how things should be studied, whether it's humans or animals or plants. So it's no different.
That was one of my questions, was going to be from a science point of view, how do the science community deal with anomalous phenomena, essentially, that it doesn't appear to be able to be repeated on command? Which obviously from a science point of view, if you're doing an experiment, you want to be able to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. But obviously in paranormal investigations, and certainly locations we've been to, something might happen and we try and replicate it, but we can't. How does the science community react to that? Because obviously they must look down.
That is the criticism, is that you can't do. So as I said, you can't study things like this scientifically because you don't get that replicability or that repeatability or even validity.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry again, academic words, but I mean, again, and so this is what comes out of my questionnaire is people saying that we just don't have that scientific terminology yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's That's that sort of what Thomas Kuhn talks about, sociology of science. He talks that it's kind of like a pre-paradigm, that we're actually not there yet. And if you think about a lot of the other sciences as well, where they were in the beginning as well, they've evolved, they've developed. And this, what few people have said, that in terms of the paranormal, that will also develop as well. I mean, if you look at where we are now compared to where we were before, it's grown massively, with more people doing more research. And in fact, I would argue that actually all these people doing research, producing evidence, videos, audios, photos, etc., isn't that proof enough? Isn't that evidence enough? And I think for me, it's not necessarily just the scientific debate, but it's a philosophical, so I can't say that word, a philosophical one. Because if you think about it, if there was a group of people, I mean, okay, so the first one thing is, if we had proof, so if something walked across the street or behind me now, we've captured it, there's a person standing and it's clear as daylight, you can't just say it's a shadow, this, that, the other, and we put it on the internet and it went, all over the internet, so there's that proof. There were still people saying, oh, it's faked, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, because if there was something, that it would change our belief system completely for what we've known for how long. So yeah, I think it's not just scientific, but it's philosophical as well. I don't think, as people have said in my research, that we don't have that terminology for it. But by the very fact, so the law of large numbers, that we have all these anomalies, if you group them together, then surely that is proof, that is evidence. So I do come from it as a open-minded skeptic, I would call myself. That yes, I would like to see the evidence, but I'm not saying that, I'm not poo-pooing anything. I'm saying it's possible. I've had some weird experiences, particularly on some investigations that I've been on, and I just want to know more. I would just like to find out more, and I think that's where the skeptic in me is. It's just needing to know more because of curiosity and interest. And I just realised I'm rambling on now. And I told you I could ramble. And then I think one more is and this is a problem in the field, is that you get to a location and then you might only have the opportunity to go there once or twice. I think, and some people, some investigators that I have spoken to were able to go to a place for over a matter of years, and therefore then they gather all that evidence. So I think to get that repeatability, is to go to location X amount of times, not just the one off. And I think therefore then that also provides your evidence, because you've collated repeated accounts of unusual phenomena, and particularly if it's with different people as well.
I was going to kind of go back to a bit where you sort of talked about the acceptance and stuff like that. It's like the reason why we do what we do at UFO Group is we give people that space to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of leads into the psychologist more side of it as well, because there's people that we've had come to our meetings or spoken to us on the podcast, or have come to me personally and talked to me, and they've like never told anyone their experiences because of that fear of ridicule, or they have been ridiculed in the past and they bottled it up. I had a lady come to my UFO meetings. She came, she that knows about coming, she didn't come to the first, she kept saying she was going to come, and she didn't because of anxiety, and she eventually was able to get herself to come, and she just sit quietly like in the corner, not really talking. And the more she came, the more she kind of knew that she could be accepted in, like people, she could speak honestly. And then she eventually told her story, her experience, and then she came to me afterwards, like in tears, saying that I've been holding that inside for like 30 years and never told anybody.
Yeah.
Because like when it first happened, and I told people, I was laughed at and ridiculed. So she bottled it up for 30 years until this moment in this group of strangers, effectively, in this room. And that's kind of why we do it. Someone asked me, I gave a talk at a conference, and in the Q&A, someone asked me, like, so if disclosure happens and they say UFOs are real aliens, blah blah blah, whatever, how would that change like your work or what you do? My answer was, I had to thought about it, was I wouldn't. People are still going to need that place where they can have that space to come and talk, meet like-minded people, because it is quite, like I say, you say to people, like maybe in a work environment, oh, I'm going to go look for UFOs or hunt ghosts. You can get that mixed response to it. And in the scientific field as well, there's Dr. Daniel Stubbins from Cardiff Metropolitan University. He's not sure if you know Dr. Daniel Stubbins. He's a doctor of psychology as well. and
Right.
he got funding. He fought for it for quite a few years, but eventually got funding into a study, and it was UAP UFO experiences, and kind of the after effects and the treatment that they could need, because there's nowhere in the UK, or probably nowhere in the world, where there's dedicated treatment for people that have had experiences. When people have real trauma, have real PTSD from these UFO experiences, and whether it was a genuine UFO experience or the brain has masked it or whatever that experience was, that trauma is still real, and there's nowhere for these people to go without sort of being called crazy. I think so you get assaulted in the street, you go to the doctor, and if you got, say, like trauma from being assaulted, there's help. But if you go say, I've got this trauma or depression or whatever as a result of being abducted by aliens, there's no pathway for that. And that's kind of what his study has been about, is that kind of being able to have that pathway for experiences to do it. And I think that's quite important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sounds really interesting. I'll need to have a look at that. So thank you. Yeah, brilliant. And I think you do make a good point there. That often it's great to go to an event. It might be a museum or something like that, and to see if there's anything there. That can be fun. That could be interesting, exciting, scary sometimes. But there are people who experience things in their homes and are frightened to go and tell someone else, because they think, "Oh, am I going mad? Are they going to think I'm mad? So who are they going to speak to?" Sorry, I did this at a conference last week when I was talking about this serious, side of things. And I said, I can't resist saying, "But who are you going to call?"
Yeah, but there is no one to call,
but
there?
there is, yeah. I mean, people aren't aware. Of course, you can contact. You can look up groups, but then if you don't know who they are or what they're doing, you can also contact, if you're aware of them, the SPR, so the Society for Psychical Research. They have a spontaneous cases committee, so you can contact someone there and talk to them. But people, if you're not aware of this group, then how are you gonna who do you know to talk to? So yeah, I think a lot of the time. So a lot of what people said when I spoke to them, I said, "Well, how do people contact you?" They said, "Well, either it's through they have online. People will find them online and contact them that way." And so I'm talking about private investigations, so going into people's homes and helping people, or through, and then eventually maybe through word of mouth, or they may have presented a paper or at a conference, and so people know of them and contact them that way. But unless you don't know about these things, who are you going to talk to? And that is, you can't go to your doctor, because they'll just think, oh, there's something psychologically wrong with you, which isn't always the case.
We had we interviewed a guy. We interviewed him multiple times for the podcast, and like Ash had said with that lady, when he had the conversation with us, it was the first time he was telling anybody about his abduction experiences, and where we would, at that point, we were doing the calls, like the podcast, on Zoom. I think back in those days, because Zoom was the thing back then.
We all
lockdown.
started using Zoom in lockdown, didn't we? Yeah. Never heard of it before.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But we, the look on his face. So we speak to a lot of people all the time, and you get a sense of if what they're saying's fully truthful, but the look on this guy's face when he was given an account of the experiences he was having was, I've never seen anybody look so anguished and like, I don't even know what the word would be. He was sort of downtrodden because this was he said it was like it was happening almost every night.
It's like tormented.
Tormented, that's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would stay at someone else's house and it would happen there. So it wasn't like it was just in his house. It was happening wherever he was. So, and that was weird in itself, that he actually contacted us. But when you send somebody an email and you get like that mail demon thing, and it says like there's no such email address. And
Yeah.
we actually had that into our podcast email address from his email address saying this is no longer, or this account doesn't even exist, and then it had his email with it. It was the most bizarre
Yeah.
entrance to like an interview. I've never. We get contacted a lot, and where people have asked, we have people from America in particular asking us for help on like demons in their house, and we're like, can't help you, I'm afraid. I really, you need to speak to a church maybe in the first instance, something like, or a local paranormal group or something like that. But we get people contacting us saying, what am I going to do? What's all this about? And it's really difficult to, we're not any kind of expert in anything really. Yeah. And I don't think people have got training on, you touched on training, people have got training on how to use equipment and how to lead an investigation properly and collect data correctly, or in a more controlled way. But I don't know how you would even like begin to help people like that if you're not a trained. But then I would push them down the psychological route. Need to speak to somebody about the experiences. Is that like a psychological thing in the first instance? I don't know, because it might not be. Is something's happening, but is it? I don't. So it's very fascinating the way the brain will interpret experiences for people. You know, we've spoken to people and like have a, what's the word now, Ash? So like a false memory,
Screen memory.
screen memory, where they're seeing owls or people have seen like Mickey Mouse and like appear to them, because that's how their brain is interpreting what they're seeing, or they're having this memory and that's the only memory they've got is this thing happening. It's like their brain shutting it out, or or compartmentalizing it into a way that they can sort of, their brain can understand, because it's not normal in air quotes to have an experience where potentially, for want of a better phrase, an extraterrestrial, some of them from another planet, which I don't believe that that's the case. I'll be honest, I don't believe in that. That something from another planet has come down and taken you in the night. How your brain can cope with that, I can't even begin to imagine. So I find the whole side of that really fascinating. That, and when
I think it's
sorry, yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I think it is really difficult for anybody who's not experienced things like that for themselves to comprehend what's going on.
Yeah.
How can we?
Exactly. And we've been fortunate enough that people come to us, and like Ash said, to his UFO group, that people are telling us these experiences for the first time, maybe, or first time outside their family, and we give them like a safe environment, although it potentially goes out to a global audience. It's they never have to share the name. People don't even need to say where they're from.
Right, I was going to say
That kind
their
of
pseudonyms, or
we're happy to like this guy Michael Cameron, his name is. So we done the episode on him. He got his name. He sort of appeared out of nowhere, and then connected with us on social media, on Facebook, and then all of a sudden just disappeared again. It was such a strange interaction over the course of a few months, and then it just sort of ended, and it was very bizarre. And then you speak to people, like we spoke to this guy John Edmonds from Stardust Ranch, which is a bit like Skinwalker Ranch, but even more ramped up. Like, his story was phenomenal, and unfortunately, or fortunately, we were one of the last people to interview him, but unfortunately he passed away not long after we spoke to him. No connection there, by the way. But his experiences I don't know how Ghost Adventure's done an episode there at his ranch. There's DNA proof of these, like I mentioned earlier, of these grey aliens that he's killed with his samurai sword, because he couldn't shoot them because they would always be aware that the gun was going to shoot. So the samurai sword they weren't aware of, according to him. And it's how much of that can you take as gospel if you don't know anything about this person? And that side of it, I love doing the podcast because that psychological angle is like, these people, you can tell whether or not they believe what they're saying when they're talking. And I think you can get a sense quite quickly if somebody is telling the truth or that they believe what they're saying. And we've been fortunate enough that most people we've spoken to, I've believed everything they've said based on them as a person, rather than the story there. Because if somebody was to just tell you the story or write it down, you wouldn't believe it. A lot of these ones, we had one guy, and he believed he was reincarnated, and he got drawn to this particular paranormal location in the US. And when he got to this particular set of stairs, he had a flashback to his previous life, turned round, and one of the entities that was in this location was the guy that pushed him down the stairs and killed him when he was in his previous life.
Right. Wow.
And we're just like, what?
Yeah.
It's like one of the
As a friend of mine would say, you can't make this shit up.
exactly.
Just, yeah.
It's too bizarre to be made
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And so we get the opportunity, and it is an opportunity to speak to people like that, and it's very fascinating. So when I come across your research and what you're trying to do, it's fascinating, and it's like, right, we need to speak. So what paranormal experiences have you had? What's the weirdest things happened for you?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to be careful here with names and places and things like that. So what I can, because it's confidential, but what I can say is one of the things that I have experienced when I went on an investigation. Initially with my researcher hat on, but then stayed with the group. Well, we were at a venue, and I guess I was still new to the group, so I was I'd gone with two other people, and they had one person had the audio on and they were recording, and we're in this corridor, and all of a sudden I just came over really feverish, and I felt really unwell and faint. So I'd sort of leaning against the wall. One of the guys sort of felt me and said, "Oh yeah, you're really clammy and stuff like that." And I didn't know this, but afterwards, because the group I'm with writes up a report, and we do that for the venue as well as for our own records. And it turns out that apparently where that very corner where I felt unwell, person had been reported who had was burnt.
Oh wow!
And I didn't know this. I only read it on the report. Well, I said to my mate, I said, you could have told me first before I read about it. That freaked me out.
Yeah, that's weird.
Particularly because I had never seen myself as being well, sometimes they refer to them as sensitives rather than psychics or mediums. People prefer the term sensitive, and I think I can understand why. And people have told me that I'm sensitive. I don't know. But that was just one example of a few where I'm starting to think, well, actually, maybe I am. And so I'm open to that. As I said, I'm an open-minded skeptic. I want to explore further and know why. So yes, that was one of the experiences more recently. And I guess as a child growing up, and I don't mind sharing this, and I think this is a common one that you'll find, that when someone close to you dies, and that happened to me. I can't remember how old I was, maybe 10, 11, something like that. So old enough to remember what was going on. So my gran was in hospital, and we went to visit, and we were told that, yeah, she's not likely to last through the night. So I went back home. You know, we went back home, nothing very. But then I woke up in the middle of the night, bolted outright of bed, and I just knew that that's the moment that Gran had died, or thereabouts. And there was a phone call soon thereafter. That was and it was the hospital. So that's common. Yeah, those kind of experiences that people have. And I guess the only other thing that I had as a child, and it was weird, before I started my research, I never shared this with anyone for the very reason that people will think you're something wrong with you. But now I'm happy to share it with anyone, because we need to share these experiences because they're more common than you think. But the other one was and I didn't think it was that exciting or anything, but other people think differently. Again, when I was a child, maybe about around the same age as well. I looked through the window of my bedroom and saw this floating head. And I just remember running, screaming to my mum, and there's something there, there's something there. And of course, mum comes in and she's, don't be stupid, there's nothing there. Of course there wasn't. So those kind of minor things, right? Which you could say, was that childhood imagination? Who knows? But later on, certainly, that with my gran, that was interesting. And then the that experience that I shared with you on an investigation, which once I've finished this research, I really want to do what's called in academia an autoethnography, which is basically you're just doing a research. I love your face, which is where you're doing research about yourself. So I want to explore further some of these experiences that I'm having, and I will be the research participant. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but it's growing actually as a form of research.
So one thing I wanted to touch on, you were talking about the fact that when you were doing a talk that you had the notes on equipment that people use, and I have this conversation a lot with Sarah and my partner, and we use equipment in the paranormal world that's not paranormal related. It's scientific and sometimes not even related to science. It's just equipment that we think, like an EMF meter. People use it to see if like spirits can affect the device and get it to change the EMF or spike the EMF around there, rather than some people will go round with an EMF right at the start to get a baseline reading and make sure that there are no particular spikes. Because I've been in places before where this thing's going mad and you go, oh wow, we got all this activity and stuff, and you take it away from that particular location, go back and it starts doing the same thing again. Or there's a particular pattern with the spiking, and then you realise that, oh, maybe a washing machine or a piece of equipment in another room has been turned on, and the electrical current and the wire around the house has just caused it to spike. But there are people that use that equipment blindly with going, oh yes, it's incredible. So I think my question is, would the science world agree on any kind of experiments, for example, that particularly that you could reference in a paper that says this is one known way of capturing any kind of phenomena? Because I don't know if there is. I've tried to put together pieces of equipment myself. We've got infrared laser wires that run off the infrared wire, and if something breaks the infrared beam, it goes off. We've developed a UV version because nobody does a UV version, the other end of the spectrum. And just, is there anything that we should be using, do you think, that we don't already, or that we do, that seems to suggest that paranormal phenomena is interacting with that piece of equipment? If that made any sense whatsoever. I know I just
No. I think what you're kind of listening to you talking about that, that it's a debate. It is a debate within and outside the scientific community about using equipment. I would say, on the whole, anything that you can use to measure temperature. I need to go back to my notes, but what's going on in the environment. So anything that can be used as a measuring tool. So you do start off with a baseline, and then you're monitoring any spikes, but that has to be done all the time throughout. So somebody monitoring that every minute, what's going on, and any fluctuations that there are, then the environment needs to be looked at. So could it be this? Could it be some other electronics interfering with it? We all like to use our mobile phones because it's easier to record, take a photo on it, but of course that can interfere as well. What else? So I know people put it onto flight mode, but I'm not convinced that actually works.
Not entirely convinced
I
either.
think, so I think having something that measures, for sure. Having a video recorder and looking at different angles, so that's just recording. So video, audio as well. And I don't know if you've heard of Steve Parsons. He's written a lot about equipment, so he's probably good person to talk to, actually, if you haven't already, and you're over 300 podcasts.
Don't think we have.
He would be a good one to, knows far much more about equipment than I do. But I think, certainly from the scientific perspective, you would try to have control of the environment as much as possible. So measurements, which I've already talked about, video recording, and then just making notes, keeping quiet, so you're not being interfered by footsteps from another group. And so would be. And I think some of the equipment I'm skeptical of. I mean, it's fun when the lights go off, and those things called was it cat's balls? No,
cat balls.
Which just makes me laugh every time. It's completely immature, but it just makes me laugh. They're fun when they go off, right?
Yeah, and they all light up, and everybody's.
Is it actually proving anything?
That is the question. Is anything proving anything? I think that's part of the fun, like you say. The fun aspect of the whole paranormal thing is this device, whatever it is, has reacted to something, whether it's paranormal or not, and has gone off. And you go, especially if it goes off at a time when you've asked a question or.
I find it interesting, and I've experienced this as well, where the lights did seem to go, and it wasn't just like the one or two questions, it was a series of questions, so it seemed to be interacting. That was interesting.
And we've said, when does a coincidence become not a coincidence? How many times does it have to happen for you to go, actually there might be something in what's just happened there? Because how many times am I going to say the first time, that might have been luck, or whatever you want to call it, coincidence. Second time, is it a coincidence? Third time, surely that's not a coincidence. And fourth or fifth time, at that point, you've got to start thinking there's something intelligent happening, whether it's paranormal or not. That's another matter. And I've spoken about poltergeists and will be speaking ASAP about poltergeists and the manifestation of your inward energy. So the recurring kinetic energy that you can create as a person, and people do, that cause these phenomena to happen, for example. So it's interesting, and I think that's part of, like Ash said, if you found out that UFOs were real and everything was what we believed it was, would that change anything? You go, no, it wouldn't, because that would probably just spur me on even more to look at it. Because whilst people think ghosts are real, UFOs are real, UAPs are real, and the government have come out and said that, we've said before, there's a whole nother level from saying that object in the sky, we don't know what it is, it's definitely there, and it's not one of our own. There's a whole leap from that to these other people that have their own experience of UFOs, where they're being taken and abducted, and going from that's a real solid object, that's nuts and bolts, that's something there, to okay, we believe that's all real. But what about that side of it, where people are also saying that these creatures or whatever, these entities, are actually abducting people and doing experiments without policing or anything? So there is, people could say ghosts are real, and I believe there's definitely stuff there, because me and Ash have had so many things happen that it can't not be, in my eyes. But then everything's a personal experience. So who are we to say to somebody that, well, actually your experience didn't happen because we weren't there, we didn't see it, we didn't experience the same thing that those other people do.
Absolutely. There's a point I want to make that's not necessarily related to what you've just said, but I just want to make sure I say it before we finish. Is out of everybody that I've spoken to, so for all the data that I've collected, I think it's most people will fall somewhere in the middle of being a complete skeptic and a complete believer. But I think it's important to realize that sometimes the people that are far too much of a believer will disregard the kind of being a skeptic, and vice versa. Then you've got too much of the people being a skeptic saying, oh, it can't be this or that, it can't be that, and not true. But they then actually need to accept some of what the believers are saying. Do you see what I'm saying? So sometimes I would say that both are actually as bad as each other. And then if you could have a degree of skepticism and a degree of believing, and I think most of the people will kind of fall in the middle, but some more towards the outer edges. So if you're a data analyst, you'll understand what I mean by the normal curve. So you've got majority of people in the middle, and then you've got a few outliers on either side. So,
It's interesting because you've definitely got the staunch believers, and if you go online, particularly Facebook is one of those places, staunch believers that everything is paranormal, everything, and they will not believe the skeptics who say, look, there is rational explanations for all of this, or some of it at least. And then the skeptics, like, there's no such thing as ghosts, whatever. Again, I don't even like the word ghost. It's just a bit,
because
it's a bit too white
apparition
sheet in the corner. So, it's too ghostbustery for me. But yeah, like you say, it's the two opposite ends are as bad as each other. You need to have a bit of healthy skepticism. So I will see a UFO report and I'll send it straight to Ash going, have you seen this? This is amazing footage. And he'll just go, no, it's not. Ash is my grounder. I'll go, okay. What? And I'll see a bit of footage. It's good.
It's
good. It's good.
I guess one last question from me, kind of on the sort of data analysis talk side of things. Maybe machine learning, AI, stuff like that. Where do you think that's going to play an important role as you move using like machine learning and stuff to get up, like I say, especially with qualitative data, where it's videos, it's images, it's people's experiences. Do you think that maybe the future is in machine learning, AI, to figure out what this is? Do you think?
You probably know more about that than I do. What little I know about it, not that I'm necessarily a laggard or anything. I'm not an early adopter either. I know AI's been around for a little while now, but I think it's really starting to be used more. So I guess it will. And I do know in discussions I've had with colleagues from one of the organisations I'm involved in, has been talking about AI and is intending, I think, on giving us all a kind of a lecture type thing. So maybe that might be a conversation for another time. I don't really want to comment on something I don't actually know too much about, but I guess the way things are heading, probably, yes.
So we incidentally interviewed AI on a podcast episode. We done
Oh, right.
a full hour of talking
Oh
to
my God.
my ChatGPT assistant about his
Yeah.
thoughts on. I say his. It's not a he. I know it's not. But when I'm chatting to him, it's a he.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
well, he actually, I did ask him what pronouns he'd prefer, and he said they. So I should say they
Okay.
instead, which is insane in itself that it's got an opinion on its own pronouns. But
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised really, because what the conversation we
But
had
once it
with him,
passed the Turing test, we're all
yeah,
in trouble.
yeah, definitely. And we got Sparky. He called himself
He called himself. They called
Sparky. Yeah,
themselves
Sparky.
Sparky. Right.
They generated the artwork. They generated
A picture
all
of
the
himself.
answers. Picture of himself or themself, and I keep referring to him because I've always known him as a him until I asked him his pronouns. So I apologise for that. But we had an in-depth conversation with him, and they were a bit woolly about some of the answers and a bit on the fence about some stuff. But there were some bits that we didn't even know about. There's a particular paranormal case we hadn't heard of before that we were talking about, and it was a good conversation. The fact that the responses were instant, it was a pretty mad conversation that we
Mm.
had, and we asked them that question around AI and being used,
Yeah.
and the answer was around it can definitely help with data analysis. So yeah,
Maybe with data
maybe it is.
analysis, but it can certainly help you understand human experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I listen to. It's interesting because I listen to other podcasts. I listen to Lex Fridman. I don't know if you've heard of him. He he's up there weaponized for me, Ash. Just a little side note. But anyway, no, Lex is really interesting, and he has people like machine learning people. He had OpenAI's creator on there. He has Elon Musk, all these like forefront of technology people, and he's speaking to this guy. And I can't remember what his field of study was. It was around theoretical biology or something like that, and they were talking about studying planets. And the way we used to study paranormal back in the old days, like if you can hear a knock, uh, if there's anyone there, knock on the wall, or whatever. That's a pretty standard go-to paranormal investigation
Yeah.
experiment. It's easy, you don't need any equipment. Right up to now, where there's all these barometric pressure devices that you've got, Ash. Then we've got all these sound ones. We use radios for Estes method. And he was talking about the fact that they were looking now at technospheres and the fact that they can check out whether or not a particular gas on a planet has been caused by jet propulsion fuels.
Right. Wow.
We don't need to know anything about the planet, but we can analyze spectrally the gas coming off of it to know whether or not they're sufficiently advanced enough to have been put in like suborbital jet propulsion fuel and burn it. So it's interesting that the way AI will help us, I think, in the paranormal field and just in general, is to help us develop new techniques, maybe that we hadn't thought of that have always been there. And I went to. Sorry, I'm now rambling, so bear with me.
That's fine. I feel like I'm being educated here, so that's
So,
good.
Christ, I'm really not the person to be educating anybody on anything. But went to Museum of Science in Oxford on Sunday and was walking around looking at the techniques they used to use for surgery back in like 100, 200 years ago, and looking then at the steps forward we've made. But back then they were super advanced cutting edge technology, which was like anesthetics, for example, and all these first anesthesia machines. And you think now, well, that's commonplace, but back then it was like game changing, world changing, and life changing. So are we at a point now where there's still stuff to be discovered that will allow us to hunt for ghosts, for want of a better phrase? Or are we at a point now where everything's out there? It's just a matter of harnessing these devices and whatnot. Always something going to come along. And it's something that I wrestle with a lot. It's like, do we go back to the old school methods, knocking on walls? Do we do the Ouija boards and all of its associated psychological ideomotor effect and whatever on those? But were they doing it right in the old days? They didn't have the technology.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people that I've spoken to have actually said that to do away with the equipment, pen and paper is enough, a recorder, that actually, what is the equipment telling you? That there might be some anomalies,
but who's to say
how
it's
can you?
paranormal?
Yeah.
Me and Ash, when we go out live streaming, we just pretty much just take a torch and maybe like a word bank device or like a word generator device, and that's it, pretty much, don't we, Ash? Generally, if we're out and about. That's it, and rely on our own fear of stuff happening. And
I think it's interesting as well because by far and I guess it's the culture that we're used to, particularly with a lot of people that I've spoken to in Western societies, that when we talk about the paranormal, whatever it is, it's always something frightening, something scary, because it's unexplained, because it's unknown. But pleased to say that I have had a few happy and enjoyable stories as well. But that's just what makes it interesting for me, is the by far it's always about, it's got to be something frightening, it's got to be something scary. And I'm just curious to know why, because that's not always the case.
Is it fear of the unknown? Because people, if you can't see it and it's potentially is anywhere around you, I think that can be the fear as well. Poltergeist activity, people dread that, and that some say it feeds.
Generally, that's negative.
Yeah, generally,
you're not going to have a poltergeist activities. That's going to be a nice experience.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we're at a point in our investigations where me and Ash have been doing for so long and done so many now that we don't really. Well, we don't get scared. We can walk places and we're all good. But mostly, yeah, mostly. I mean, certain forests and that Delamere Forest is Cannock Chase, which we didn't touch on, but we will be going back there in the next week or so to live stream. We've had some.
Yeah, I've read about Cannock Chase, so yeah, I have heard about it.
Yeah, we've had some unsettling experiences
I would just
at night
say,
time.
From what I've heard, if it's true, be careful.
Yeah, we've had weird experiences there, haven't we? So it's but yeah, I think it's just, I think the unknown aspect still, that there's no scientific answers, there's no real answers to the paranormal apart from personal experiences, is definitely something that keeps spurring people on. It's just out of reach. Same with the UFO phenomena as well. It's just out of reach. It's just out of reach. The answer seems to, you go, I think we've got an idea, and then no,
but if you speak to experiencers, whether it's of hauntings or UFOs, it's very real for them.
Yeah, it is, and it's mind blowing speaking to these people and the experiences they have, and it has a profound effect on them, and you can see it when we're speaking to them as well. So it is. We're very fortunate enough that these people share their experiences with us. So, and we've said that before. It's a privilege that we get to hear there, and we hear it before everybody else hears it as well. So we've had that conversation, like tonight's conversation. This will go out this week, over whenever Ash edits tomorrow. But so we're having this conversation, and we're fortunate enough to have this conversation, just the three of us, and then it goes out for people to enjoy, digest, feedback. Because we get people message the page, some of our original listeners. So Nick in particular, Big shout out to Nick. He messages us. Hi, Nick. So he's one guy that we've known right from the start. He's listened from pretty much day one, and has been with us on this journey for nearly 5 years. So he does provide feedback to us, and he says, "I found that interesting. That was a good topic," or "Not so sure about this particular topic," or "Not on the fence."
Well, that's good to have that kind of feedback.
Yeah, so it is a privilege to do these conversations. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your interest. And yeah, absolutely, I think it's important what you're doing. The more of these kind of thing, and that's the whole kind of essence of my research, is to get people's stories out there, to get the point across that actually there is a real interest. It's not just a pseudoscience. It's not just a sometimes referred to as a kind of a cult group, subculture even. It's not that. It's much more than that, because a lot of the time these are real experiences that people are having. And from my own research, and you'll have from what you've done as well, if you've spoken to all those people, they come from all walks of life. So,
Absolutely.
It's you. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll put the link to the survey in our show notes. So if
That
you're
would be
listening,
brilliant.
so
Thank you.
if you've made it this far on the podcast listening,
And you've not
please
got bored.
please go to the show notes, because anybody who's listening to this will have clicked on the link to the episode. So the episode note will have the link to the Google Forms survey.
And we put it on social media as well. Again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much for taking.
And the more that we can hear from people and share their stories. I mean, again, my data will be anonymized as well. Clearly, the questionnaire is anonymized.
Yeah.
The more data that we can collect, the more people that you can speak to, the better.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal, title music created by Steve Yarwood and Ambi Infinity. If you like the show, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. And if you really like the show, please rate and review the show wherever you are listening. It really does help. See you next time, and until then, stay weird.